Hey folks, it's Chuck back again with another refrigerant checkup. Today, another episode in our mini-series on A2L Refrigerants, and we're going to dive into the world of codes and standards. So I brought in one of my Chemours colleagues, Stephen Spletzer, who does a lot of work in this area, and so we're going to get right into it. Welcome, Stephen. And let me just start by asking a simple question. We always say codes and standards. I tend to say codes and standards, but it seems to me we really should be saying standards and codes. So to start off, can you give us an overview? What exactly is the process, and what are the steps, and what order it goes into, and then we'll get into some of the details.
Sure. So the HVACR industry has to reduce its use of higher GWP HFC refrigerants. Several states in the U.S., such as California, have already proposed regulations to this effect. However, for many applications, the only available lower GWP replacements are flammable. Fortunately, our industry has developed a new class of refrigerants that help minimize the risk associated with flammability, namely the mildly flammable A2Ls. So in order to ensure that we can use these new refrigerants safely, we need to update both the product design and application safety standards. This will allow manufacturers to redesign their equipment for A2Ls and help promote safe and effective installation and service practices. Much of this work has already been done. Once the standards are updated, we move to the building codes. Ideally, the model codes are updated first based on the standards and serve as a template for state code adoption. The industry is currently working on updating the 2024 model codes. However, states don't have to wait for the model codes. They can also update their own codes directly based on the new standards. Some states, like Washington, have already completed this process. So, here in the U.S., we're focused on 4 safety standards. The first is ASHRAE 15, the application standard for HVACR systems. The 2019 edition of ASHRAE 15 includes requirements for A2Ls in direct air conditioning applications and machine rooms. Second is UL 60335-2-40, the product design standard for air conditioning systems. The third edition of this standard was also published in 2019 and contains requirements for A2Ls as well. Then there's ASHRAE 15.2, the new application standard for residential air conditioning systems, which is currently under development. Now, while these standards are already covered under ASHRAE 15, the goal of this new standard is to extract only the requirements from ASHRAE 15 and UL 60335-2-40 that are specific to residential air conditioning systems, creating a simpler tool for our industry. The goal is to have this new standard published in the first half of 2021. Finally, there's UL 60335-2-89, the product design standard for commercial refrigeration applications. Work on the second edition is ongoing and will include requirements for A2Ls. Our hope is to have the new version of this standard completed in the first half of 2021 as well.
Okay, got it on the standards. And what about the codes?
So for A2Ls, there are 4 main model codes to consider. The first is the Uniform Mechanical Code, or the UMC, which is only used or adopted by a handful of states and localities. However, this is the mechanical code for California, one of the states leading this transition. The International Mechanical Code, or the IMC, is used or adopted by most other states. Now, historically, building codes treat requirements for residential systems separately, so we also have to consider the International Residential Code, or the IRC. And finally, there's the International Fire Code, or the IFC. The IFC covers storage requirements or warehousing of flammable materials, such as A2L refrigerant cylinders. Our industry is currently working to update the requirements for A2Ls by referencing or incorporating language from the standards we just discussed into the 2024 model codes.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So what are some of the subjects and the issues that are really being addressed in these updates?
Well, there are many. First and foremost, the goal of the standards is to ensure that flammable refrigerants can be used safely. Part of this is eliminating ignition sources from the equipment. There are also new construction requirements, for example, the types of joints that you can use in these systems. Charge sizes are also limited to help ensure that leaks don't form flammable concentrations, and units will be clearly labeled to indicate that they contain flammable refrigerants. Finally, some applications may include active mitigation techniques such as onboard detection to activate circulation air or ventilation in the event of a refrigerant release.
Great, well thanks for that explanation. One last question for those of us in the HVACR industry who don't do codes and standards work on a daily basis. What do we need to know, and what should we be doing going forward?
Great question. Well, the fact is, for those of us who don't live in the standards and codes world, much of the action here is behind the scenes. But the truth is, not only are A2Ls coming, they're already here in use in millions of cars and small self-contained systems. So it's important to keep informed by staying connected with industry organizations like NATE and RSES. There's also newsletters and literature available from companies like Chemours. And it's also great to get prepared. Manufacturers are currently developing and delivering A2L training as we speak. Much of this training today is online or remote by necessity, but once this pandemic passes, don't be surprised to find A2L training at a wholesaler or distributor near you.
All right, well thanks so much for that update on codes and standards, Stephen. We certainly appreciate your expertise. I will put links to the newsletter and other literature in the comments section. For all the viewers, please make sure you hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes we have upcoming around A2Ls and everything refrigerant related here with the Refrigerant Checkup. Thanks again, and look forward to talking to you soon. So long.
Thank you.